Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer. Right over there is John, our resident Millennial. John, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Not too bad. Not too
Really?
bad. Not too bad.
Not too
Yeah,
bad?
not
That,
too bad.
based off your normal answer, that's
It's pretty
that's freaking
terrible.
horrible.
It's horrific.
I I believe that you are coming to us with a little bit of angst tonight. So we're gonna have to delve into that, and we're gonna have to see if we can solve your woes, or at least find some place, a happy place that you can be. Big shout out! I see Elephant Man there in the chat. How you doing tonight, Elephant
What
Man? Good to see you. Thanks for hanging in there, folks. As you're joining us, please make sure and hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Do not hit the like button twice because that just becomes redundant and counterproductive. Dislike button is still broken. Is that correct, John? We haven't been able to get
uh,
that fixed.
yeah, the guy said he was going to come between Thursday and September, so we'll see.
Of
See what happens.
2020?
He didn't say.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So a nice open window there. So that may never be fixed anytime soon. So sorry about that. But instead, you can hit the notification button. Make sure that you're getting notifications when we're going live. Elephant Man is finishing up on the Ed Show. I was just over on Ed Show myself. He's talking to the to Freckles, the young lady
Hmm.
that you might be familiar with from our show that was here with
Yeah.
Brett. I think you're familiar with her. Um, she was putting up with Ed. She's putting up with Ed. She does a good job of putting up with Ed. He can be a tough cookie sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh, well, not really. I love Ed. I really do. I love Ed. I love Ed enough. I'm willing to show him how much I love him.
Wow.
Right? I would be willing to
Oh my
show him
god.
my love. Um,
Oh my
I won't let him take
god.
pictures of my love, but I will let him. I will show him.
Right.
It's never good to let people take pictures, John. You just don't do it.
Right. Not a
Um,
good idea. Not with the internet out there.
right? Right. You never know when you're going to be up for a Supreme Court position. Right?
Yeah,
10
exactly.
years from now, 20 years from now. You don't want those pictures floating around.
Yep.
Uh,
Because someone will find
yeah,
them, as it were.
I'm always surprised by this kind of stuff when that happens. Like when we talk about Kavanaugh, we talk about some of these other politicians who these things come to light, and I have to say, when they vet somebody, you suck at your job if you didn't catch that shit and get ahead of the curve on that. I mean,
Mm,
if it's a big enough issue that it can be, brought into the public light and made such a big deal of, you need to get better vetters. I'm just saying. I
yeah.
mean, it's possible that you need somebody a little stronger on your team. I don't know. Find a fucking hacker. Maybe you need to have hackers vetting people, the ones that'll go and that like actually know how to open the closet door and move shit out of the way and find the skeletons.
All you gotta do is just go to Kiwi Farms and just be like, hey guys, this person called you all faggots. And then they'll go and find every little piece of dirt that that person could possibly have, like ever.
And then when
So,
they have all the information, you're like, just kidding. Here,
yeah, just
let
kidding.
us take
Thanks.
these papers.
Yeah, thanks
Let's
for doing all the work for
yeah,
us.
just give us that thumb drive. We'll take care of everything from here.
Yep.
But I mean, I look at something like Kavanaugh. I mean, that was a pretty big fucking deal to not, you know. Now, of course it does, of course it always will look like that, oh, well, somebody kept their mouth shut till it was time. But somebody knew something prompted her, prompts these people to come forward. So somebody knows something somewhere that triggers these people to come forward. Or
Yeah, I don't
something.
know.
I don't know. For when I like Kavanaugh again jumps into my mind. What was her? What agenda could she possibly have unless she just, you
Well,
know,
there were
she
several
just
things.
didn't like him. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, there was that. There was, obviously everyone wants their moment in the sun or whatever, and book deals. I mean, that's multi-million dollar,
you know, you
book
know,
deals.
you know what
Pretty sweet.
you know what I think actually the actual answer to vetting is. If you want to vet someone as a candidate or a potential running mate, whatever the case may be, have the other party vet them. Because they'll go to the extent of, like, I don't know, going back to Kavanaugh's college and looking up all the people that he was involved in with college and just sitting going bullshit and talk to them till you dig up a nugget and then you run with it and find out as
Yeah.
much as you can and then you stir the pot. Let
You
the
take them
other
out for
party vet them.
drinks and, let them have a couple of drinks in them and, just, that's all you got to do. Yeah.
Right? You know,
Tongues get really loose when,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Let the other party vet them. Just call it a day. They'll find all the dirt you need because apparently they can find the dirt for you that you didn't find.
Yeah.
Um, it's all a bunch of funny shit. So, John,
Yeah.
I think it was last week we talked about the Libertarian Party debate,
Yeah.
which you watched and you were
Did.
you had some good takeaways from that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
was impressed by John Mons. I really was.
and and then so after we did that show, then the Libertarian Party actually chose their candidate.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you maybe have a little bit of mixed feelings on this. Can you
I don't think they're mixed.
can you repeat back to me what you said you wanted the title of this show to be?
I don't remember specifically what I put.
Oh, shall I get Discord?
Yeah, because I
Shall I
don't
get
remember
Discord?
specifically which one I put.
I think I can answer that question for you. Here it is. I got to go back just a little bit because we did have
Yeah.
some conversation about that. Um,
Yeah.
da-da-da. Good Lord, we did talk a little bit, didn't
Yeah, we
we?
talked a little bit.
Here it is. Yes, I want to do a fuck the Libertarian Party episode
Yeah,
on
no, I knew
Monday.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted
Fuck
it to
the
be. Yeah, fuck
Libertarian
the Libertarian
Party
Party.
show. Welcome to the
Yeah.
Fuck the Libertarian Party show. Tonight's special guest
Yeah.
is John Butthurt.
That's right.
John Butthurt, how are you doing this
In his
evening?
butt hurt form. Yeah. Yeah, my butt was pretty booty blasted, if you will, over that.
So,
Because if you remember,
go.
who was it? Who was it that I said I absolutely hated in the debates? I said it on Friday, like who I hated, and
Well,
I believe I
if you
gave reasons why.
you talked. I think you said you dislike
Yeah,
Jorgensen's platform. Is that correct?
yeah,
Not to mention that she's a woman, and we know you hate women.
right. Naturally,
Yeah,
naturally,
in a misogynistic way, you hate women, right?
of course.
Love them, hate them. Um, but I don't think they listened to
No,
you.
no, they fucked around and made her the nominee.
Okay, so here's okay. First off,
Yeah.
was it a legitimate, from the standpoint of doing it by the numbers? Was it a legitimate selection? Not a matter of, was she the best candidate? Was it a legitimate
Right.
selection based off the numbers in the books?
As far as I know, I didn't actually get to see the selection because I was in Jacksonville at the time that it was going on. So yeah, I only got to see on the way home. They were actually just wrapping it up and announced like as we were driving home. So that's why we had that lengthy conversation because I was bored. Like a 2-hour drive and there's nothing else to do.
Um,
So I figured I would talk to you.
are you familiar with the process by which they decide on the candidate for the
Do
Libertarian Party?
delegates, yeah, like the other parties, they do delegates.
Statewide delegates, is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So how did they have? I guess, and this is where I get a little bit confused. We haven't finished all of the primaries across all 50 states at this point. Am I correct? Or are
I
they
don't
all
think
in?
so. I don't think
Right.
so.
So how can they have?
If as long as you get enough to where no one else is able to get more than you, then obviously you win.
Right. And so this is just tapping into libertarian delegates in each of those states. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Because when the primary elections are being held, like when people are casting votes, libertarians aren't figuring into it if they don't even have a nominee, right? So it's
Well,
got to happen extraneously of
right,
that.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I know we have states 3 months ago that were, being chosen for either Bernie or Biden or whoever, as people were dropping out of the race.
right.
Libertarians were in fact, so that was the
Well, I
Democratic
think they
primary.
did though. They did. Like you could vote for Libertarian, and then those would be the people who moved on to
Hmm,
like the next debate or the next.
gotcha,
As far as I'm aware, that's how that works. It could be wrong.
gotcha.
Wasn't following it until the last debate.
Okay, so here's the next question. Um, Before we talk about her policies, was do you think the choice to for Joe Jorgensen was a pandering choice to try and sway Democratic voters?
I don't know.
Well, first
Um,
off, was she the only woman in the Libertarian
yeah, she was the
running?
only woman there.
Gotcha.
But John Mons is a black guy,
Uh,
so
Black isn't as important right now as woman
I
is.
understand. Yeah.
Right? I mean, when you look at Biden, his first choice is woman. Black is the secondary intersectionality that he wants to
Right.
target, right? If necessary, he's fine with just a woman, as is evidenced by the potential for a Klobuchar, the
Yeah,
potential
Klobuchar.
for Warren. So, do you
Oh
think that
God.
factored in?
It. I mean, it might have. If that's the case, then they're way too far gone.
I mean, yeah, because I wouldn't expect the Libertarian Party to play identity politics. Am I
Yeah.
correct? This
Even as a
should not be.
strategy,
This
it's
shouldn't
yeah.
factor into the libertarian ideology, right? At all?
Right. Not at all. No.
Right.
Should be
Okay.
completely merit based.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah. So I mean, obviously she got more delegates than everyone else. As far I mean, assuming that they did it, legit, which I'm sure they did.
So now, in moving on, talking about where her platform, as it were, is do
Yeah.
you have do you have specific platform issues? And real quick, I'll preface by saying I have her platform issues pulled up because I want to kind of go through them and see
Yeah.
where you truly stand on them. But from an overall perspective, what is it that makes her the least viable candidate in your opinion?
She's too much about like compromise in that she's not gonna try and gut the alphabet agency. She's not gonna, she's obviously she's for open borders, but you can say that about any of those candidates there. Um, but that's the main thing is that she's not going to start moving towards libertarianism. She's just gonna kind of she wants to do this whole like one thing at a time, like one presidency at a time. And that's not going to work with libertarians because, first of all, we can't get one into the presidency. How can we be assured that we're going to get more in order to continue that work?
Okay, so so when you talk about let me ask you, I'll focus on the alphabet spending that we do, right?
Hmm.
The agencies we have there. She has so on her policy issues. One is about government spending, deficits, and debt. And I'm going to read this to you, and I want to ask, and the overall question is going to be whether or not this um, would have an impact on those things. So she says, as president, I will use my constitutional authority to block any new borrowing. I will veto any spending bill that would lead to a deficit and veto any debt ceiling increase. I will give every cabinet secretary a specific spending reduction target to meet and hold them accountable. There is simply no excuse for sticking our children and grandchildren with the bill of these bipartisan bloated budgets.
Hmm.
Would you agree that, social programs aside, aren't these alphabet groups within the government a lot of the bloated budget that we have?
Oh, hell yeah.
So, in effect, would she not be basically targeting those as well in
So,
cutting major spending and not allowing further deficit building?
right. So, what I got from her is mainly that she's going to be shuffling the spending as opposed to like cutting it drastically. So like she mentioned during the debate about getting rid of the CIA as its own entity
Hmm.
and folding it into the military, which of course just makes the military industrial complex even larger and even more powerful, as opposed to trying to stop doing those sorts of things. It just makes it bigger, bloated, more bloated. So all that extra spending goes there instead of to the CIA. So technically, yeah, the CIA is gone, but it's the same thing happening under a different name in a much larger entity.
Okay, but she does say that she will give every cabinet secretary a specific spending reduction target to meet
Yeah.
and hold them accountable, which tells me that that she, while she may be shuffling some of the spending, she's also putting some of the responsibility of cutting that spending, because we have a secretary of the people in charge of the military
Yeah.
that would need to reduce their spending as
Secretary of
well,
Defense. Yeah.
Secretary of Defense. So they would be responsible for cutting their budget to a certain target as well, because of course, if she is saying that she's going to veto any spending bill that leads to a deficit, that means that even the military cannot continue to be bloated and carry us towards a deficit through military spending. And that does lead to an, her military, how she looks at the military, peace, etc. She talks about turning America into a giant Switzerland, armed and neutral. Now, she
Yeah.
says this is not about isolationism. She says, with the military force to defend American shores and soil, that's including American territories,
Hmm.
against any foreign attackers and invaders, protected by an armed citizenry and by a military laser focused on defending America specifically. No U.S. involvement in foreign wars. Bring home our
Hmm.
200,000 plus American military personnel stationed in foreign countries. So basically, she wants to have open trade with the citizenry of other countries, but not have military out and about in the world. Their only focus would be here defending America. Now, I take from that a vis-a-vis coupled with the debt reduction that she's talking about, the spending reductions. That means that the military would have to actively reduce in numbers if we were
Hmm.
here at home. So, would you agree that those are potential plans for cutting military spending, even if we are shuffling alphabet
It
groups
would.
around?
Yeah, it would. But the thing is, you'll find that on any of those candidates' page, their whatever their policy pages, you would find that exact same thing. In fact, if you watch the debates, they all say that exact, like pretty much that exact same thing. Ending the foreign wars, bringing people home from the bases on foreign soil. Obviously cutting it drastically, having not being involved in other people's affairs, like not overthrowing
Right.
countries and installing a puppet government, those sorts of things. So I mean, you'll find that with any libertarian candidate. It doesn't make her special.
Well, but I guess my it leads to is that a strong stance for a libertarian to take? That's a solid place for a libertarian to be. Am I correct?
Yeah. You wouldn't be a libertarian candidate if you didn't have that stance.
I mean, it's a matter of whether or not you can succeed with that, though, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Um, I see Saint has just shown up in the house. We
Hello.
are bitches. Good evening. So on trade and immigration, and she talks a little bit about travel in this as well. So she says the freedom to trade and travel are fundamental to human liberty. As American citizens, we should be free to travel anywhere we choose and to buy and sell anywhere in the world. As president, I will use constitutional authority to eliminate trade barriers and tariffs and work to repeal arbitrary quotas on the number of people who can legally enter the United States to work, visit, or reside. Now, this one you're not as in love with. This,
Never. Yeah.
well,
Not in
the
love. Not
the
in love at
latter
all with the
half,
open borders.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
latter half of that. Open
Right.
borders to trade and
Trade
travel
is
are
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
What about
Trade is
travel?
fine. Uh, Travel temporarily, sure.
Okay, but as far as coming here as far as open borders for like an open path to
Yeah.
citizenship, that you don't agree with. Is that correct?
Right. Absolutely. And the biggest reason being that it drives wages down a lot, because there are people obviously who are willing to work for a lot less than you and I would. So it drives the wages way down and makes like the lowest wage jobs extremely competitive, which is not how they're supposed to be at all.
So let's move on to another talking point because this one, right now this one hits a little bit close to home for me, and it's about health care. She says Republican and Democratic policies over the past 50 years are the reason health care has become so expensive. Their latest proposals to fix healthcare will further micromanage your doctors and restrict your access to care while failing to solve the underlying problem. They differ only on whether this should be done by private insurance or government bureaucrats. This is the exact opposite of what needs to be done. She says we can reduce the cost of health care 75% by allowing real price competition and by substantially reducing government and insurance company paperwork. This will make
Mm-hmm.
healthcare affordable for most Americans while also reducing the cost of legacy programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA. Now, first off, is that just a standard talking point amongst
Yeah,
libertarians again?
basically, yeah.
Okay.
There's really nothing special about her, nothing different, and it's also more of I can't see her standing in front of someone like Kim Jong Un or Putin, if you want to go that direction, or even going over to Boris Johnson if he's still prime minister at that time. Any foreign you know uh, leaders or dignitaries or whatever. I mean, yeah, like obviously anyone should be able to be president, but she's just a university teacher. Like she doesn't have any kind of credentials I think that would lead her to making good deals with foreign leaders and dignitaries, of course.
Well, I mean, based off the gist I'm getting from her, she wouldn't have to be because really the only thing like the primary reason she would be dealing with other countries is purely from a trade standpoint.
Right, but I mean, not only that, but we also have to make deals with them. If we're gonna have this whole, remove my own bias for a second. If we're gonna have this whole open borders thing, and we're gonna have, uh, unlimited this, unlimited that, the country that they're gonna be coming from still wants to be able to, keep track of their citizens, especially if they don't get citizenship in the U.S. If they're coming here for 6 months to work and then go back, or they're coming here for 2 years to study and then go back or whatever, there's still going to be talk between the different countries, and there have to be deals that are made based on how to supply that information, how to keep track of that information, all that paperwork and bureaucracy.
Hmm.
The only way would be to abolish citizenship, which of course isn't going to happen, but
Well,
that would be the only way to do
yeah. So, like with this
it.
healthcare, what she says about healthcare, the one thing that bothers me about it is that you don't really hear any anything that's touching on how to drive the cost of insurance down. Sure, reduce the amount of insurance company paperwork. And she
Yeah,
talks about driving the cost of health care down by 75%. Now that's health care, and I see health care versus insurance as two different things,
yeah.
right?
Well, I
But
mean, if you do that, there's less of a need for insurance if you can get the cost of the actual medicine, the actual healthcare, lower.
right, I would agree with that to a certain extent until, like, for instance, as you know, I not too long ago I went to the emergency room to have something checked out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and to the tune of almost $40,000 for one emergency room visit. So reducing that by 75% still leaves me with $10,000 in
yeah.
medical bills. And I'm like, I can't, if I don't have insurance, right, I'm screwed to come up
Mm-hmm.
with $10,000. If I do have insurance, I'm screwed to come up with $3,000 to $5,000 in a deductible. If the health insurance prices costs aren't going down substantially, not to mention deductibles and the entrance level that you have to achieve. And ironically, that even if that were reduced to $10,000 for that emergency room bill, that's still almost twice as much as the actual surgery can be done for outside of the
Right.
hospital. Because like it's a $5,000 to $6,000 surgery at some places, so it costs more to
Yeah.
go to the fucking emergency room just to have it checked and see if I'm okay for the moment than it does to go and actually have it done. They could have saved me money by just doing the fucking operation right there in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Now that, and so that's where I say, it's great that we can you talk about maybe driving down some of the cost, but the costs are still exacerbated when you look at the availability of insurance
Right.
to people.
Well,
And
that's the largest problem is the insurance companies. We've talked about this before, obviously, but that's the biggest problem that's driving the costs up. And yeah, Saint's right. Her platform is part and parcel for a libertarian platform, but that's all it is. Like, there's nothing unique about her. There's nothing special about her, and she's not even a great speaker or anything. She's not particularly charismatic.
okay,
She's just I don't know, like, I don't know why anyone would have voted for her. She's just kind of there. Like, she participated is basically what I got from her in the debate. She participated
okay,
and she said, the normal dumb shit of, open borders and because, it's people's rights and
so well, so if I'm getting the gist correctly, if what these issue points are part and parcel to the libertarian platform,
yeah,
and
most of them.
most everybody that was in that debate was saying, very similar things, then what 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 made anybody else a standout and makes a difference in who they pick, whether it be
John
her?
Mon's bow tie. I
Well,
would have voted for that bow tie.
how about something realistic that that matters? Was
Yeah,
anybody did
so
anybody say something that was not just libertarian platform?
um Judge Jim Gray had a great thing about jury nullification that I liked a lot.
Jury nullification?
Yeah. I think I've explained it on the stream before. But it's basically it's not like a law itself, but it's like the consequence of two laws. One being, you can't be tried for the same crime twice.
Double jeopardy.
Yeah, and the other one being that it has to be a unanimous decision by the jury to convict. And so you can just say, well, I'm not going to convict this person regardless of if I think they're guilty or not. Because whether it's a protest because the law is stupid, so like if you're going to, jury for someone who had, 100 pounds of weed or something, something that would, take a jury,
Yeah, any
obviously,
juror could
you know,
intentionally make a hung jury or throw the vote,
right,
right? Leave it.
right. That's, yeah, jury nullification.
Um,
And he was saying, because most times with judges, lawyers, like lawyers will kick you off immediately if they even think what jury nullification is, so that you won't ever serve on a jury. Um, but what Jim Gray was saying is that that is absolutely your right to do. If a law is unjust, it is absolutely your right to not convict somebody, even if they are completely guilty. And I did like that part.
um, does that not speak to a failure in our justice system,
Well,
though?
that's kind of the correction of it, though, isn't it? That's kind of a way to correct when there's a shitty law.
Wait, okay. So he is clarify for me his stance on he's talking about getting rid of juror
No,
nullification.
no, no. He's saying you absolutely have a right to, to not convict somebody,
Even
because the law is stupid or the law is unjust, whatever it is. You absolutely like,
Oh, so the law that they're facing criminal charges for breaking, if you don't agree that it's just.
right.
Um,
Then you absolutely have the right to not convict that person. I think the question was something about like fixing that, like fixing jury, not jury nullification or something. He was saying no, like it's there for a reason.
yeah, because that one I just you know how I am. It's not necessarily because I'm so authoritarian. It's simply because, well, there are laws in place, and if someone breaks the law, it's the gray area of whether or not they broke the law or not. I don't necessarily agree with, well, I don't like the law, so I'm just going to throw the jury. I don't necessarily agree with that because, I mean, you could get some douchebag on a jury that's like, well, I don't like laws against murder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean that's much less likely to happen
Well, I
than the
mean, you can't.
description that
Can
I
you?
gave.
Right, but can you always weed out the psycho? I mean, I great. I'm just saying it may be an outlier situation, but I'm just saying. I mean, if that's kind of one of those things where it's just like you can just fuck with you can fuck with all sorts of people that need to be put away for doing bad
Yeah.
things. They broke the law. I understand that, I've been in situations where I didn't agree that laws were just. I actually got in trouble when I was younger for something, and there wasn't a law to be broken, so the judge made it what I did against the law as a misdemeanor so that I could be tried and the county could make money off
Yeah,
of it.
that doesn't sound like something that should be allowed at all.
Right, because the only well, it basically fell out that the only charge that they could level against me was a felony that fell into the category of what they were trying to accomplish, and it
Hmm.
was a felony, but I hadn't done enough to qualify as a felony, so the judge ruled that it could be charged as a misdemeanor of that
Mm.
crime. It was the first time it ever happened. I'm not going to go into great detail about it or anything, but it
Oh
was the
my
first
god.
time that charge had been dropped down to a misdemeanor level and allowed to go through. But it was at a time in Georgia when the Olympics were coming, and the county I was in was expecting to host an event, and they were cleaning house. I mean, fucking throw. I mean, they cleaned almost every homeless person off the streets and threw them in jail cells.
Yeah.
Just called it like felony loitering and shit, whatever. So they were cleaning house. So anything that they could get their hands on that would generate bucks that way, they did to
Yeah.
to save face and look pretty for the Olympics coming through. Helton says if you
But yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say Helton's making a good point.
Yeah.
What if the mandatory sentence is death and the person believes that if one cannot kill, then the government cannot kill either? Yeah. If you're against the death penalty, you
Well,
should be able to not have to condemn someone else to death.
well, hold on. But this is something that whenever a case is going, whenever the death penalty is on the table for a case, when they are selecting the jury, if I'm not mistaken, they have an obligation to inform potential jurors that this is going to be a death penalty case, that the ramifications of a guilty verdict can be
Hmm.
the death penalty, and allow those people to make the moral decision. They ask them, do you have any moral issues with the death penalty? And if so, they dismiss them from having to serve
Well,
jury
yeah, of
duty.
course, because they want to
Right.
put the guy to
Well, no,
death.
this
Of
is this
course,
this comes from the judge. This is the judge.
Yeah, yeah.
He will say, if anyone has a compunction against the death penalty, you're free to leave. We don't want anybody on here that is going to have a moral issue with the death penalty. You have to be objective about this.
You know what's amazing is I've never been called for jury duty.
I'm surprised too. You're a
Yeah,
registered voter, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
I mean, they
yeah.
say it's purely random, but almost everybody gets one
At some
very
point,
shortly after registering to vote.
I never did. Yeah,
Yeah.
very strange. I don't know.
I see Elsers. I see Helton has shown up, as you said. Anna Voltis is in
Anna
there.
Voltis, what's up? Jury
I
nullification is a form of corruption. It's a
right.
form of corruption, but I think it's a more moral form of corruption.
Saint says he believes revenge should not be illegal.
Well, revenge in what way
Right. The
specifically?
outcomes of revenge,
Yeah,
right?
because
Revenge.
then you get like the Serbian blood feuds, where one family member will kill a member of another family, and then that family will kill a member of that family. And it just goes back and forth for generations, and then people don't even remember why they're fighting each other, and they just are. It doesn't always end up well.
So Helton says in the Atlanta, Georgia bombing, if they had succeeded in falsely railroading Richard Jewell, he would have been given the death penalty. Now, now again, one would hope that they are doing the right thing and they're not having moral objectors sitting on the jury. You need to have people that are ambivalent about the death penalty
I wonder
serving on
what
the
if they
jury.
would.
Both sides want that, right?
I wonder what they would say if they're like, oh, if anyone has any complexions against the death penalty. It's like, no, I want them all. All penalties, all crime should be death penalty.
Right, and
I'm
then
sure you.
they
I'm sure you'll be
they
dismissed
do they do
immediately.
their best to get rid of those people as
Right.
well. Again, they strive to have only objective people on the jury. That's the hope. Um,
Yeah.
Now, it does fly in the face as to a jury of my peers, because if I'm sitting in that defendant chair and I'm looking at the death penalty, I don't want to die. I don't want to go to jail and die. So that's the 12 people you need to have up there. There's other people that don't want to go to jail and be killed. That's
Yeah.
what you need to have up there, right? That's my peers right
Well,
now.
and then the whole death penalty thing, there's so much bullshit that goes along with it because you get like 20 years to sit around while you're, waiting for appeals and, you're doing all the legal trickery to extend that time. I mean, you could be there for 20, 30 years sitting on death row.
Well, oh, yeah. When it's all said and done, the real problem I have with juries is that, it falls into that category of a jury of your peers. Because, you know, take an urban kid. I don't care what color he is. I don't, whatever it is, an urban kid, poverty-stricken neighborhood, whatever, and is committing crimes, right? And he's sitting in front of a jury for some, I don't know, facing charges for, armed robbery of a store, whatever. He's not going to have peers on that jury. Like if you have white collar Americans and and in higher economic classes, these are not his peers. These people, you're talking about people who haven't lived in the same circumstances that might drive someone to make these decisions,
Mm.
or might drive them to be wrongly accused because of, where they're at, location, circumstance, the whole 9 yards, right? Um, there is a definitive difference. The socioeconomic imbalances that go on with between juries and justice, to me, is more the absurdity. Because unfortunately, yeah, you can't delve into the gray areas uh, in that way. The best you can do is try and make some, beyond a reasonable doubt case. Um, you know, I don't know. That one's always bothered me because I don't think that people actually sit and are judged by their peers
Well,
in
yeah,
a lot of trials.
absolutely.
But I you know I don't know. I haven't really looked into her. Are you willing to support her in her run for the presidency to further the Libertarian Party? Are you going to abstain for voting Libertarian?
I don't know yet. I'm still in the anger phase, so I don't know what I'm going to end up doing.
Because ultimately, it comes down to you having to decide whether or not you're going to toe the party line. Am I correct?
Right, and that definitely does not appeal to me. Don't like that. And I'm actually
Oh,
very surprised that Vermin Supreme didn't win
mm.
over her, especially.
Well, you know, it's it's one of those things. I think that could possibly come into play as an image issue, right?
I mean, they put Gary Johnson up there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, when you're talking Vermin Supreme versus Gary Johnson, right? I mean,
They're both goofy.
immediately you start having this, okay, Vermin Supreme, what kind of fucking name is that? And these image issues start playing in, and then you go look at him and he's all goofy, whatever. That's what I'm talking about more than anything versus
But if you watch the
Joe
debate,
Jorgensen, who's, middle America white woman.
yeah. Oh God. Yeah, if you watch the debate though, Vermin was there, boot off the head, like dressed nice, and he was well spoken. Like he is a serious candidate. He just does that character as a way of getting attention, as a way of drawing attention to first of all supporting him. Because people start off with like, oh, I think he's funny, he's good jokes, whatever, and then you actually get into the actual policies and they're serious. Then they're just as respectable as anybody else's, probably more so.
right,
in a lot of cases, not every case, but in a lot of cases.
right. Uh,
But he was the most popular one there for sure. I don't know. I guess the delegates just
yeah, but
wanted to go with a safer choice.
YouTube chatters don't speak to popularity in the present day, as it were, if you know what I mean. I mean, when you're
Yeah,
talking about a political platform.
I know. Yeah,
Helton says, talking about the justice system, there would be plenty of room in the jails for actual dangerous people if they stop locking up people for victimless crimes.
yeah,
I can agree with that, but you first have to stop prisons from being big business.
yeah.
They are big
And
business, and
that is one of the few things I think should be run by the state
mm, even
because you should not
even
make it a
that becomes big business too, though.
yeah, but not in the same way. They're not incentivized for
Mm,
putting it. You know, like you should
right.
not be getting paid for putting people in cages.
But
That is just not.
do you want to pay to keep those people in cages?
I
You
mean, obviously,
have,
I
I
don't.
mean, look around. It's just, at some time,
Right,
if you
but
ever, for shits and giggles, look at one of your state penitentiaries, and find out how much it costs to upkeep these motherfuckers on a daily
yeah,
basis.
it's about 40 grand a year for each one of them.
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah,
salary, right?
right. Oh yeah,
And that's got to come out of taxpayer dollars.
I
If this,
understand.
so
Well, the federal
it's
government usually gives grants for states that have like federal prisons in them.
sure, right. I mean, I get it, but I mean, even local prisons, your local, go to the precinct on 33rd, the jail on
Yeah,
33rd here in our town, and it's probably costing you anywhere from $100 to $200 per day per prisoner that's kept there, and some of
yeah.
them stay there for good amount of time.
Few years, yeah,
Yeah, so they're hitting you on a local level, they're hitting you on a state level, and then you get hit on a federal level. So you're paying for prisoners thrice over,
yeah.
all throughout the country, and that is the biggest problem I have. You know, um, the Anavolta says he likes the German legal system. No case law and rulings are based on fact. That's kind of almost
Um,
how it's supposed to be here. Facts are supposed to be the important part here, but that kind of
I
goes
don't
out
know.
the
They
window.
made flag burning illegal. I don't.
Where? Who did?
In
Uh,
Germany.
yeah, but
Yeah.
don't forget they're not America.
No,
They
I
don't
know. That's what I'm saying.
they don't have freedoms like we do.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the justice system doesn't sound that great if there's not freedom there.
Saint says if a drug he in speaking to what he said about revenge, if a drug dealer
Yeah,
kills my father and he's convicted, then I should be given the choice of killing the motherfucker. Only yeah, if he's convicted and given the death penalty, I don't have a problem with, you know, okay. I mean, it is what it is. We're human, so I don't have a problem with letting you throw the fucking switch, right? I don't have a problem with that, but only if he's given the death penalty.
yeah,
I think it still falls to a state determination as to whether or not they have a death penalty and how they carry it out. To a certain extent, it should not be inhumane, et cetera, et cetera. But I do agree that, and I hate that I say this, but it's only because I grew up. I've lived with monsters. There are people that need to be taken out of the picture.
yeah.
And I don't want to sit and pay 40 grand a year for those people to stay in a behind the picture. You know what I
Right.
mean? Helton says he agrees with that. Just make sure he is the one who did it, which is always
Yeah,
important.
yeah. Of course,
He also says he doesn't think Joe could pull as many votes as Johnson,
I
kind
agree.
of lending to what you said.
Because she's just fucking boring. Although I will say, I don't know if it was her idea or some staffer who works for her, but she reignited the old "I'm with her" hashtag on Twitter, the Hillary Clinton one from 2016, and holy shit, the shit fit that was thrown by Democrats and lefties in general
Shouldn't
was of
libertarians have been throwing a
epic
fit too?
proportions. It was funnier watching them. like I'm sure there were some libertarians that were mad about it, but watching Democrats and just lefties, progressives, whatever, throw a shit fit about it was
Right?
just amazing.
Like
Just
like that hashtag was
perfect.
copyrighted for Clinton.
Yeah,
What
I
the
know.
fuck? What the
I
fuck?
know. It was so good. I will give her
Mm.
that. I will give her all those props. That was really good.
He also says, Elephant Man says, now John knows feels the way the GOP felt in 16.
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
I'd say that's accurate.
Helton says, but what the hell do I know? Anybody I vote for always loses.
Well, shit. Let me know who you're gonna vote for so I can vote against.
Now, Anavolta says replace prisons with penal labor. Um, yes,
Voluntarily, if you want to like reduce your sentence through penal labor, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I wouldn't want to force people to do labor that's slavery, and it also encourages obviously more prisoners.
well, now I will say this. Um, to a certain extent. So if you do penal labor from a prison where you're actually producing, right, something
Mm-hmm.
of value and of use, yes, they should be paid a fair wage. However, to reduce the cost to the taxpayers, I do think that that wage could be applied to room, board, etc., throughout the course of them being there. I don't agree with handing them a bill for their time there because
Yeah,
then these fucking prisons are just double dipping because you already got your money from the taxpayers to pay for it as it's ongoing, and then you want to hit the prisoners with a bill when they're being released from prison that they're expected to pay, and if they don't, you can sue them right back into fucking prison
yeah.
for not paying the debt because it can turn into a bench warrant kind of situation, et
Well,
cetera,
see,
et
which is
cetera.
ridiculous if it's a debt, because you're not supposed to be able to be jailed for your debts. That is
Yeah, but this is different
unconstitutional.
because it is
That's a fine or a fee
right.
or
It's
something. It's
considered
just
right,
called something different.
right.
It's so stupid.
So if you want to pay them a wage and charge them X amount of dollars for their time there, so that you can and you're appropriating the funds correctly, that's fine. Um,
Yeah, real
I'm
quick though, Ron Hilton saying, "Well, if Joe is for that BS, then I'll definitely refrain from voting for her. I'll still vote for local and state libertarians." He abhors identity politics and SJW bullshit. She wasn't. It's not. She wasn't like advocating for anything like that. It was just she trolled everyone by using that hashtag. That's what it was. It was just a big troll, which was amazing. It was
I
really.
was
I have to
was it
give
a
it to her. It was
troll or
really
was she
good.
trying to appropriate it like the N word?
I mean, both.
Okay.
I mean, but it was a huge troll, and it worked so well that it was trending for like yesterday and today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Helton says that he abhors any identity politics and
yeah,
SJWBS, and I mean to be honest with you, that in this upcoming election, if you hate identity politics and SJW bullshit, then you should be prepared to either not vote at all or cast your vote
yeah.
for Donald Trump because he's going to be the farthest thing away from identity
Well,
politics.
he is a lightning rod for identity politics and
But he
SJWBS.
doesn't he doesn't practice them.
Right, he
Is what
doesn't.
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got
but he
identity.
ensures that there's going to be more screeching and
Sure, sure, but that's his thing. That's how he won,
tantrum
so he's
throwing
going to
and
keep
such.
doing it. That was the vehicle by which he drove into the White House, right? So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. But I don't know if, you know, is it broken? Has he gone too far for not too far, but gone on too long with that screeching? And will it resonate with the American public if he continues to do it in attempting to secure the election this time around?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he's going to win again. Obviously, I think he's just going to be able to harness their energy and use it against them. Every time they screech or something, and someone says or does something stupid, and then he just uses that, against them. Like with the Joe Biden thing. You saw that video, right? The obviously I know the "you ain't black," if you
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
vote.
yeah. Yeah. Hey,
Obviously you saw that part, but I'm saying like what happened afterwards.
you're
The
talking
Trump
about
campaign started selling
the
the
T-shirts, yeah,
yeah, the
the
T-shirts,
troll
and
shirts, yeah.
yeah, and there was a political ad about it.
I think those
Um,
shirts should come with a free troll doll. He would sell a billion of them. I'm
a
just saying,
Trump troll doll would be awesome.
right? Or all of them would have orange hair. They would be the orange hair troll dolls.
Of
Yes,
course, yeah.
sell those with those shirt. That would be a great package deal to
Oh
get.
yeah.
I would potentially buy that shirt.
I would
just to
probably
get the
buy that.
troll
Yeah.
doll, especially if they glue, I don't know. Um,
Little
uh,
comb for it, and you can just comb it.
Elephant Man says no more prisons. Nonviolent crimes get fines. Violent criminals get life in mental facilities. However, bear this in mind. If you got rid of prisons and you started using mental facilities for violent criminals, all you're really doing is transferring the corruption from the prisons into the mental facilities, because
Right.
then
It's the same thing.
they become the
Right.
new enterprise
You're just
for
changing
the
the name and slapping a new coat of paint on it. It's the same
right,
thing, though.
right. The
Yeah.
corruption will be there as well because they're already corrupt. They keep people in mental homes to gain money for
Yeah.
funding, that probably don't need to be there.
Yeah.
You know.
It's the same shit. Same problems.
Um, and then you'd also have to have separate mental facilities because you can't keep violent criminals in mental facilities with people who are self-checking in for
Yeah.
emotional, mental issues that they're having and feel they need help.
Well, that's what they had. They would have like asylums for the criminally insane and
Like
things like
Arkham,
that.
because we saw how
Well,
well
yeah.
Arkham worked, right?
Arkham City was awesome, though.
He says violent criminals deserve pity. Well, I mean, in a sense, if you're putting them in mental health institutions, mental facilities, you're kind of pandering to the pity because you're attempting to get them help. That's my thought of the only reason why you would put them in mental facilities is the
Yeah.
idea that you're going to try and help and rehabilitate them.
And
You know,
also, not only that, but hang on. So, what's wrong with pity? There's a difference between. It's not like pity doesn't need to mean that you feel sorry for them and you're going to just let them get away with it. Yeah, we know Arkham is fiction. We know. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
pity
I know.
doesn't necessarily mean. I know. We got it. We're on top of it.
That was the reason why I used it. I mean,
Right.
it was. Sorry, I didn't have my sarcastic face on.
But yeah, pity doesn't mean that like you're gonna say, "Oh, it's okay what you did, and we're gonna let you get away with it." That's not what pity means. You can pity someone because their
I
circumstances
pity the fool.
led them to where they are now. Their circumstances and choices are possibly even their inability to understand consequences of choices, things like that. That happens to people. And you can pity that, but that doesn't mean that you have to let them get away with it.
I tell you, you know, he does bring up a good point though. Um, there is a definitive need in this country for better mental wellness. I mean, you have to. I think you have to admit that over the last, let's take the 2000s. We'll just say the 2000s, the last 2 decades. Um, the mental stability of this country has gotten worse when you have a leadership that is constantly pitting, is at odds with each other, and then is pitting the American population against each other. You have them, you have so many groups
Yeah.
calling out for their equality and their social justice, and there's so many, and then what have we had for the last 5 years is just so much. Oh, everything is it's all this fake news, you
Yeah.
don't know what to believe. I mean, it's so confusing and so depressing in this country anymore. The mental wellness of our country is really a challenge right now, and I believe that leads to more crime.
So yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest problems is media in general, not just news or anything like that, but just media in general, and it's how easily accessible it is at any time, at all times, wherever, whenever, whatever it is. Um, Especially, but yeah, I mean, the 24 hours news cycle definitely has something to do with it. You're able to just put the news on and, you walk around, you just hear about all the horrible things happening all around the world.
Mhm.
Whereas it used to be you got the news, what, once a night at 11, something
Well,
like, or 6
six
o'clock,
and 6 and 11.
6 and 11. Yeah. And so that would be like, okay, you sit down, you do that, but then the rest of your day, your life just is you, your family, your house, and maybe your community, whatever is around
Well,
you,
well,
and then that was really about it. Whereas now everyone at all times is thinking about, oh no, what are we doing over in some other country? What's going on over here? And then you get like anxious, stressed out because of
uh,
just this constant negativity that you're being fed.
well, here's what I would say to that, because I disagree with it to a certain extent. I would say over the last, I would say since World War I, Americans have basically had a focus on the rest of the world and what other countries are
Mm.
doing.
Yeah,
We were kind of forced to, and then we've carried on from there through different wars that we've perpetuated. Like that is just kind of a staple thing.
sure.
I I
But even
I
then, back
believe
then, you would get the
I believe this
news.
country
Like,
is. I think the country itself is more of a trial and tribulation than the global dynamics that are also going on. I think that our own country, divided amongst itself in so many ways, is much more damning to the American psyche than anything else. I mean, people literally, I feel, fear more here on their own home soil than they do from outside of this country
sure.
because we've
But
generated
whatever.
so much fear here.
Right. And that's kind of my point, though. Obviously, worrying about the rest of the world, but also worrying about what's happening in this country as opposed to what's happening around you. If that makes sense. So, like the anxiety that you get, that a lot of people will get from that, is just the fight or flight instinct. The same thing that makes you think like, oh, I feel like ghost hunters will do, like, oh, I feel a presence in the house,
Right,
that kind of deal. That's your fight or fight instinct kicking in, and since that's kicking in, there must be something to fight or flight from.
right.
And so it's the
Sure.
same kind of thing with the news when you've got that constantly going. It's like anything can happen at any moment. There must be something about to happen, like, and that just that wears on
Right,
your psyche. You're
right.
not supposed to feel that at all times. That's supposed to be when there's danger.
I mean, we have created such a level of distrust within our own communities. I mean, and all the way down to the simple mistrust of, here comes election season. Somebody throws a Trump sign in their yard, two houses down from you.
Hmm.
Now you've
The
got an
enemy is
enemy,
right
right?
there.
They're right
Yeah,
there
yeah,
on your street. They don't think like you, and we've been taught if they don't think like you, they're
they're the
bad, they're
enemy.
the enemy. You've got to
Yep.
stand up and defend yourself, be prepared. This is the level of contention we've reached.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
it wasn't surprising. I forget which libertarian candidate was that didn't know what was it,
Aleppo, that was
Aleppo,
Gary Johnson.
right?
Yeah.
um, you know that I honestly believe that speaks to so many more Americans than you might imagine
I didn't
who.
know what Aleppo was either until that became a thing.
No,
I
I
think
knew
he didn't know
I
what it
knew
was.
Aleppo was in Syria. I knew that it's one of the various locations in Syria where shit pops off. Shit's going on because we just need to be out of Syria as a whole, um, before we get into a situation with Russia. But when it's all said and done, that is not surprising, and it's not surprising if you were to go out on the street, right, and just ask 100 different people, you would probably get a majority of those people answering the same way he did.
Yeah.
But if you ask them what's Columbine, more
Oh
people
yeah,
are
yeah,
gonna, right, they'll
yeah.
have that because we continually rehash that with every new school shooting that we were having up until this pandemic. Kind of put a halt to a lot of school shootings, right?
Yeah. Well,
Right.
Ron Helton's making a good point. A non-interventionist does not need to know where Aleppo is. That's true.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
I have to agree with that, and but he basically did the apology thing where he's like, I need to be smarter on world politics.
See, I'd
Well,
never do that.
yeah, right. So he backtracked and he cucked on it, and
Yeah.
that was that.
And then
Um,
also Ron Helton was asking, who the fuck is Spike Cohen, VP pick? Yeah, he's the VP for Joe Jorgensen. He was initially the VP pick for Vermin Supreme. It was gonna be Vermin Spike was the ticket, and then they guess they stole him.
mm,
Yeah.
I'd rather listen to Spike Jones.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Listen to Spike Jones. Have you heard Spike
Spike
Jones music?
Jones. Yeah, of course.
Old stuff from the 1930s,
Oh, 1930s?
1930s, 1940s. Spike
Oh,
Jones.
actually, probably it sounds very familiar. I
He was
probably
he
have.
was a comedy big band performer. I think I may have
Yeah,
played him for you a couple of
I
times
think
way
so.
back.
Yeah.
He was very funny. Had a lot of good stuff. My Old Flame was one of my favorite songs by him. The Daring Young Man on the Flying Trapeze. Spike Jones
Yeah.
kicked ass back in his day. Very funny, I thought. Um, But yeah, so I don't know. I think the Libertarian Party may have shot themselves in the foot. It depends on whether or not
It's not anything different.
if she can really push and get some amount of vote that, if she can gain, I
Yeah.
think it's 5% of the vote, she could get herself on the stage. But I
Yeah.
mean, 5% is a high mark for any
She's such
libertarian
a
to
fucking
achieve.
wet blanket too. There's nothing there. One thing I do want to say though is they pissed me off a lot during the convention. When they were uh like it was before they picked the candidate or the nominee. Sorry, the nominee. um, there was just all these delegates coming in and saying, I want to, raise a motion to push, so and so as a presidential candidate. So there were like 30 presidential candidates, and what was his name? Nick Sardwick, something like that. The chair, dude, he was so over it. At the end, he just kept being like, "Denied, it's dilatory. Denied, it's dilatory. Denied, it's dilatory." He's like, "Let's just move it the fuck on. Like, stop adding all these random people." And I was in the chat like, "Hey, nominate me too. Why not? Like, fuck it." Apparently, everyone and their mother is going to be a nominee or going to be a candidate. So why not?
Well,
Like,
I'm gonna touch on a final note. I'm gonna touch on something Ron Helton said earlier in the chat. I wanted to mention it about basically there's nobody to vote for in the Libertarian Party. You'll just stick to local level candidates. But here's one thing that I've kind of gotten the gist from listening to. There's not enough libertarians, um, not necessarily not running for low level office for local and state offices, but not enough support for those candidates.
yeah,
And to be honest with you, if the libertarians really want to ever have a
I
chance at the
know.
stage, it's got to have you've got to have more community and grassroots support on the
Yeah,
local levels and move them up the chain into your state legislatures as representatives, move them into Washington through those avenues. Unfortunately, it's got to happen that way. That way, they build a presence in politics
yeah.
to actually gain a foothold in Washington politics.
Well, that's why I thought Vermin Supreme might have a chance because he's got a lot of support.
But does he have a? But he's never run for a local office. Is that correct?
I don't think so. No, I
Right.
think he's ran for president for 30 years in a row, though.
Because
Like obviously every 4 years for 30 years.
Freckles made a that point on Ed's show. I got to give her props. She's like, that's really the problem is so many of these guys just jump from you know sitting at home to running for president,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
it's on. I'm going to call out libertarians on the local level. It's on you to
hmm
get out there on a local level and support any libertarian candidates that you agree with at your local level. Get out there, work on their campaigns, show support in this way. That's how these Democrats and Republicans do it. They have a crew of people, volunteers that are out there getting on the phone, canvassing the neighborhoods, getting out there promoting them.
yeah,
Well, libertarians need the same thing. If it's ever gonna be a movement, it's going to have to start there because you've got to make a presence in politics before you'll ever get on the stage in Washington. It's just a
yeah.
fact, you know.
Absolutely.
But having said that, I am going to. Oh, Helen says, well, with over 50% of public sucking the government's teat, I don't see any
Hmm.
swift moves towards liberty anytime soon. Oh, and I will go ahead and tell you this right now, Helton. No matter what I just said about supporting your local libertarian candidates, yeah, it doesn't matter. The population is getting too big. The more people you have, the more people that are going to be looking for for a bigger
Yeah.
government that's going to support them, and it's inevitable. And unfortunately, I don't see any way in our anywhere in the near future, and by near future I mean I'll throw out 25 to 50 years, that's
Yeah.
even going to begin to have a chance of changing. The
I can
population
see
is
that.
going to continue to grow, and the government is going to have to control the population. It is going to be seen as the role of the government. I stand to say that you will see the loss of the Constitution before you see the loss of our current federal government.
Yeah.
But that's just
I
me.
don't disagree.
I'm kind of a fatalist that way. But anyway, so I got some things to do. I got to run a couple of errands with my wife after I get done with this. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to wrap this up if you don't mind, John. It's been a really good conversation. I do appreciate everything. Oh, by the way, I see Nephilim Ninja did show up. Sorry, I didn't
Oh,
catch it
hey, we
quicker.
didn't see your, yeah, didn't
Um,
see your comment.
but
Sorry.
So, I appreciate all the comments and all the chit chat that we've had tonight. It's been pretty good. I like these. Sorry about your Libertarian Party, John.
I'm used to it.
It's
Nothing new.
but I would ask you to keep an open mind and look at her, listen to her, see if she has something to say that might actually sway your vote and keep you from to take the do I vote the party line decision out of your hands to where she's actually got some common ground that you can stand on.
Yeah, I don't see it
Otherwise,
happening, but
otherwise, I'm sorry that this is the direction they wound up going.
yeah,
I do think it's identity politics, and I don't agree with that.
right.
But that being said, John, sometimes if people want to find us, there's ways for them. There's something somewhere they can find us. I think they're like in the description or something, or what's that?
Yeah, yeah. There's some stuff down there. If you guys want to go down there, hit that like and subscribe button while you go down there, and yeah, check out our link to our Twitter, which is at the GenGapP. Discord servers down there. If you're not in there, then go ahead and jump in there because it's pretty awesome. Then we've got freedomscoop.com where you can see our show and a bunch of other people's. So I guess I'll name them fine since you guys asked so much. There's Ed from J. Edgar's over there, Stephen Ignoramus, Mr. R Rated Conservatives over there. Let's see who else. Wyatt from Roundtable Decision, and the Freckles and Brick shows over there now too. So make sure you go check those out. Uh, buy our merch if you wouldn't mind. That would be kind of sweet. And enter the code GenGap at checkout, 15% off. And yeah, that's about it for now. We need to get sponsors. Let's get sponsors.
Sponsors are good. I like those.
Yeah,
Again, much love and thank you everybody for showing up tonight. We will be back again on Friday with our regular episode, which airs at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the only true time zone.
that's right.
And then, of course, we'll be back again next week at 9:30 on Monday night for another rousing episode of Shooting the Shit. I will say this. And
Oh
because
God.
John, I just love to throw a teaser out. John and I have got something that we've been talking about that I think we're going to attempt to actually put into works and have some real deep thought discussions about. And maybe, just maybe we can come up with something that gains traction and could be a thing. I don't know, John. You know me. I'm that ant
Yeah.
with high hopes. I'm looking at that rubber tree plant and I'm like, hey, but it's possible, and I think it's a pretty it's got the standing to be a pretty good idea, especially with John's minds, John's thinking behind it, because he's kind of smart on some of these things that we're going to be delving into.
Yeah,
Um, I hate
it's
giving you
true.
fucking props for shit.
But
But
you can't
anyway,
help it.
all right, we're gonna get the hell out of here. Thank you very much for being here tonight, folks. John, thank you as always for giving me some good conversation. We will see you all later, and until then, please stay safe, be good, and peace out.
Yep. See you guys.
The war will begin.